Welcome to the Glass Recycling Coalition and Southeast Recycling Development Council's webinar, Tools to Make Glass Recycling Work. I'm Jennifer Dabbs, Director of Outreach for the Southeast Recycling Development Council, and I'll be facilitating the webinar today. We've had a few last-minute adjustments here, so we had to do some shuffling in our slides, and apologize for the slight delay in getting the meeting started. We do have an excellent panel of speakers today who will be covering tools and resources available to you from these organizations. Katie Wallace with New Belgium Brewing, Ellen Martin with the Closedloop Partnership, and Will Sager with the Southeast Recycling Development Council. We're going to start with Will's presentation. Will is the Executive Director of the Southeast Recycling Development Council. CERDIC's mission is to unite industry, government, and non-government organizations promoting sustainable recycling in the Southeast by connecting local supply and regional demand of recovered materials. Efforts include a specific focus upon the economic impact of the recycling industry. Prior to his work with CERDIC, Will was the Solid Waste Director for Transylvania County, North Carolina for 16 years, starting their household hazardous waste and electronic collection programs, built the first line landfill in western North Carolina, and implemented a pay-as-you-throw program, resulting in a doubling of their county's recycling program. Later with Henderson County, he started electronics collection and created a county energy accounting system. Will is the past president of the Board of Directors for Carolina Recycling Council Coalition, and also has been a chair of the Free Clinic of Transylvania County, which serves the medical needs of the uninsured. Happy to welcome Will today, and like I said, we apologize for the slight shuffling of the presentation.
Thank you, Jen, and good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you to our webinar on tools. There are two tools that I'd like to cover that are hosted on the CERDIC website. These tools were developed by EPA Region 4 over a process of the last couple of years, looking towards integrated solid waste management planning. I'd like to share with you the sponsors that make CERDIC's work possible in the Southeast on this slide. The project brought together several parties across the Southeast. All the Region 4, 8 states were represented to see what we could do to advance or to make a transition from waste disposal planning on a state level to more of an integrated solid waste management structure or sustainable material management concept for planning. In that, we had to define where we were going, and we looked to set our goal for an effective integrated solid waste management system that would consider how to prevent, recycle, and manage solid waste in ways that most effectively protect human health and the environment. ISWM involves calculating and evaluating local needs and conditions, and then selecting and combining the most appropriate material management activities for these conditions. The leaders were from state agencies that provide technical and some states financial support for recycling. While the state agency role is support and leadership, the actual management of material usually falls upon the shoulders of local government, and that local government may or may not have the resources that they need to create effective management systems. The end result of this project was the release of two tools, ISWM model and a fiscal analysis method, to determine the full cost of a program's material management. The ISWM model is a process or a tool with which local governments can easily assess the potential providing for new or expanding existing services to their community. The downloadable file allows the user to input several parameters about the community. Some of that input is objective and some rather subjective, bringing together to build a realistic profile of the situation. We've got a screenshot of what the tool looks like on the input side. By entering this data about the community, location, community description, number of households, and other information, the model will provide outputs with directional insights for comparing costs and impacts of various programs. The model uses many assumptions based on national and regionalized data, but it does require some limited community-specific information. Some of the information you put in is objective, such as number of households. Others, like in item number 4, level of participation, gets to be somewhat subjective, but these are in the model built as drop-down menus from which you would make a choice from low participation, high participation, medium low, medium high, and so forth, much with the description of the community type. These general descriptions of those levels will help to assess, or was based on the data that was taken from other programs as the output tool was developed. More inputs here just to talk about how strong is the recycling ethic in the community. And then some other parameters about cost. What's disposal cost? What is processing cost? What's the distance to transport of materials? Should it be in a hub or spoke situation? Then the tool then does generate some very good results, and it will show what the impact of different methods of expanding services or implementing new services will have. If we put in a new method, what would the tons per year? How much will that be per household? And some projections on specific cost. The results provide for easy comparison of multiple approaches or program choices. The results can be utilized to not only choose program direction, but this tool also will then give to the user third-party justification for program recommendations when those programs are presented to elected decision makers. The results give a reasonably detailed cost projection that can be used for program planning and looking at budgeting down the road. And it includes not only operational costs, but capital cost in order to implement the program. And it looks the multiple different program options that are evaluated in this tool are drop-off programs, dual stream with bins, dual stream with carts, single stream with carts, whether or not this fits into a hub and spoke system, and all of these collection mechanisms are overlaid onto would this be weekly service or bi-weekly service, that is for the curbside. And a screenshot of what this output looks like. This is a hard to read slide on a webinar, but when the tool is on your computer, it is much easier to read. It gives direct cost and impact or material capture results for the various program approaches. And this model indicates whether the program should aim to be a hub or a spoke, whether there is enough material there to justify the investment in the MRF capabilities to support it, or should it be shipped to another. And the mileage was taken on the input side to help in determining what those answers should be. That's the ISWM model, and I'd like to transition to our second model that we've got for helping determine full cost accounting. Planning and program service expansion is crucial, but you cannot plan where you're going if you really don't know where you are. Local government budgets and accounting often make it very difficult to fully understand the true cost of solid waste and recycling operations. Typically, in local government accounting, capital expenditures are totally expensed at the time of purchase. Thus, true cost of operation may be hidden and very difficult to determine. This handbook is not a complete lesson on full cost accounting, but it is an introduction that will assist the program manager in making suitable choices and asking the appropriate questions. The document also presents an introduction into numerous methods of funding local government services so that service system managers and their elected leadership can optimize system funding based on local conditions. Full costing accounting is also a powerful tool to identify just where your costs are and how they relate to the benefits, and often who's paying these costs, and possibly customers that may not be paying these costs. Along with the manual, there is an interactive tool. The input tool allows for input of capital equipment and improvements through a complete asset inventory. Direct personnel costs, the wages and the cost of benefits is detailed for each employee within the operation. The form asks for a list of operational and maintenance costs, and a factor is calculated for expected future capital outlays. The tool makes a complete and thorough assessment of the program's finances. The results then come up with a true cost allocation. How much the cost is involved in collection, what's involved in disposal, recycling, composting, and it can be developed or utilized then for any specific operation that the unit of government may have. And then unit costs are brought back for the residential sector and commercial sector, both based on a cost per ton or cost per household. These tools were the result of a meeting process that went on for almost 2.5 years. There were representatives from Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Kentucky, Mississippi, North and South Carolina, Tennessee. Resource Recycling Systems was involved in the development of the tools. SRA International worked on gathering the input for the project, and CERTIC was a participant in the planning in this development. And that's all I have. This is the location where the tools ride. They're on our website, certic.org/ISWM. You'll find a description of each of the tools there, along with links, and then they are downloadable then, so you can have them to reside on your own PC at that point. And Jen, I thank you. I don't know if you have any questions.
We did not mention that at the beginning of the webinar, but if anyone does have questions during the presentation, there is a little questions bar in your dashboard window. Please feel free to utilize that, and we'll pause after each presenter and try to answer any questions that you may have before we transition to the next. So I'll give just a few seconds. If anyone has any questions for Will, I'll ask that to him, and if not, we will then be moving on to Katie Wallace with New Belgium Brewing. I had a question, Will, from someone who said, can Ohio use this tool?
Yes, there is one limitation that we right now, that's just the 8 Southeast or Region 4, EPA Region 4 states are listed on one of the drop downs, so you would not show the correct state, but all the functionality of the rest of the tool would work. And if that person would like to email me, I will get with the design team and see if we can make that edit.
Great. Erin says, thank you, Will. Okay, there's going to be a slight switch over here so I can get back to the beginning of the slide deck. Our next presenter is Katie Wallace with New Belgium Brewing. Katie is the Assistant Director of Sustainability at the 100% employee-owned New Belgium Brewing, where she has been for 13 years. Katie helps to lead sustainability and B Corp efforts as they relate to operations, culture, community engagement, supply chain, advocacy, and brand. She also co-chairs the Brewers Association Sustainability Committee and co-founded Glass Recycling Coalition. She has a master's in applied positive psychology from the University of Pennsylvania. Thank you, Katie. And are you able to speak? Because I know you had to dial in a different way. Okay, let me see if I can find her.
Hi there.
Katie,
can you hear me?
There we go. We can.
Great. Well, thanks for everyone for being on the call. It's wonderful to share the afternoon with you and talk about glass recycling. Hopefully some of you are able to have a nice cold bottle of beer afterwards to survive the heat wave. So just mentioning here briefly about the Glass Recycling Coalition, we were formed in April of 2016 in Washington, D.C. Our founding partners were the Glass Packaging Institute, New Belgium Brewing, and Diageo. And at that time, we gathered nearly 24 members of the glass recycling chain so that we could create a non-competitive coalition to making glass recycling work. Today, there are about 37 companies and organizations that represent glass manufacturers, haulers, processors, material recovery facilities, and brands that use glass to package our products. We also have some capital investors and market end users and a couple of advisory members. We represent all components of the glass recovery value chain, as you can see here, including state governments. We have a government advisory committee that gives us advice on the tools that we are about to present and helps to build them with us and bring in some of your interest and needs into the conversation. And what is unique about the Glass Recycling Coalition is that it's the first time the entire value chain has come together to find solutions. And I think it's our diverse membership that makes our coalition so uniquely valuable to improving glass recycling. So with that, we're able to spread our support and our knowledge base around various sectors and interests and really help to work on glass recycling nationally in a non-competitive space. So why recycle glass? I know that sounds like many of you are working on all types of recycling daily, and glass we think has a very important use within our circular economy. Glass is endlessly recyclable. It's a very benign container option for beverage companies like ours that fill it with beer, as well as others that fill it with food and other various beverages. Average glass bottle in the United States contains around 33% recycled glass, and we can have up to 96% recycled content, which is happening in some areas. It's worth noting that a lot of this glass today is coming from bottle bill states, but from a functional perspective, there is a potential to increase furnace-ready glass in non-bottle bill states, as well as improving it even in, upon the good performance in bottle bill states. Market demand for quality recycled glass remains strong. So today the glass container and fiberglass industries purchase around 2.4 million tons of recycled glass every year, and they supply over 70 U.S. manufacturing plants. And so brands like New Belgium and Diageo want more recycled content in our glass bottles because for us, I can speak to New Belgium at least, it is the #1 contributor to our greenhouse gas emissions. Annually, if you look at all of the emissions that go into making a bottle of beer, a six-pack of beer, the glass contributes about 40% of all of those emissions. It's quite significant. Jen, you could go a couple slides down and then we'll come back up to our focus. So brands are not the only ones that are wanting more glass recycled. According to a survey that we did this spring among public sector respondents, 96% of them said that our consumers and their residents want to be able to recycle glass. 65% of those respondents, though, said that they are having challenges with glass recycling. It can be hard on processing equipment and infrastructure. It can be expensive to ship and to sort. Some glass produced at MRFs is too contaminated to be recycled in an economically viable way. But there are communities that have found viable solutions for this, and they're making glass recycling work. So we know that carefully managed material ensures a high quality as well as economically viable end products. And if you can just go back up to our focus slide. The Glass Recycling Coalition came together to address these challenges because here we see a material that is endlessly recyclable. Brands and consumers and residents want more recycled glass, and we know that our systems are capable of delivering that cullet that is in demand, and we just need to be able to share some best practices and bring people together in order to improve that. So that is why the Glass Recycling Coalition is here. We know this is a viable product with market value, and we want to help communities make it a reality that is palatable. So we're not currently focused on legislative solutions on our focus. like bottle bills. So we're starting with voluntary efforts. We think that as a coalition, we are uniquely positioned to collect and publish best practices for single stream, dual stream, drop-off, and hybrid collection models. Glass recycling does work, and there are areas that we want to share those success stories from. We provide data-rich tools for the public sector. We help to identify additional end markets for glass, and most importantly, I think we bring together these glass champions so that we're creating the forum for the community to come together and solve these issues collectively in a non-competitive space. One of the action plans that we are focused on right now is providing best practices and decision-making tools to improve glass recycling. So we'll dive into some tools that you can find on our website. If you haven't been to glassrecycles.org, strongly encourage you to do so. There's an abundance of tools available for you here. We built this website back in our September that we launched it. And we have had 11,000 visitors since then, so it's getting a lot of traffic, and we're hopeful that it's of use to you. So under the tools section, you can see in the menu here, we have various selections that you can make, and we have our decision-making tool, different webinars that we've hosted that you can find there, information about being a local glass champion, so how you can sign up and get connected to the network, current grant funding opportunities that are available, as well as some maps for glass recycling infrastructure like MRFs and drop-off centers, end markets, etc. So if you come here and you select then the decision-making tool, if you can just go to the next slide, Jen, it's highlighted there for you. This is our, our resources are updated frequently, and this is our newest feature that we wanted to share with you. And it's really built mainly for you in the public sector for helping bring glass recycling to a viable position. So within the tool, you'll see that it's a customized resource, and it's really meant to meet your specific needs. You will go, some people call it a choose your own adventure tool, because the way that you answer a question will direct you in a certain pathway towards either resources and best practices that can help you, or perhaps if it's something that you're really finding a lot of success in, we'd like to know about that, and there would be an opportunity to share your best practice so that we can broadcast it to other communities that might be struggling with similar issues that you've been able to find success in. And so through answering the series of questions, checking out the resources, you can submit your name and contact information for additional help, or share your own. And I should note too, this is a beta tool, so and really we act as a platform to support you and bring the resources that you need. And so we really want your feedback. If this tool is not helpful for you, if there's a way that you think it could be a lot better, again, we want you to submit your name and your comments there to help us improve the tool over time, because it's here for you, and our hope is that it's supporting better glass recycling. Within the tool, you'll also be directed to a matrix. However, you can access that matrix again through the menu under glass recycling benefits. Here we have pulled together some data that helps communities make programmatic decisions around glass recycling. So it'll show you some of the environmental benefits and the landfill savings, the energy savings, for average performance, and for those who are really being best in class. So we don't want to manage only to average performance for the various collection and processing methods. We want to show you what's possible within each of those. And I can tell you, as a beverage manufacturer, it's not just the amount of glass that's collected that's important, but actually how much of it becomes furnace-ready glass at the end of the day. So that actual glass that's recovered after yield loss from processing is an important number to look at too. So there's some data in that space for you. And again, any input that you want to provide, we'll continue to build out these tools over time, and your input will be really important in making that valuable for you and the rest of the nation. Another tool under the toolbox are the glass recycling location markets. Here you can see a map that shows you where different MRFs are located, different drop-off locations in non-bottle bill cities. These are only for major cities. There are over 200,000 people. We'll show you where glass container manufacturers are, glass recycling processors plants, fiberglass plants. Our goal here is to provide resources for you so that you know exactly what your options are for collection and in market. And then that would really help to make a better decision. Say if you live in Montana, you might have a very different solution where the in markets are more sparse than if you lived in New York, for example, or Philadelphia. So we want to make sure that you see the resources that are there for you. This is under the legend, you can see what's available. If you click to the right of that, there's a little stack, the layers. And here you can deselect things if you want to unclutter the map and focus on just one specific type of location. But you'll be able to just dig around in there, and you'll see some ways to come into some more information. You can also search specifically for your community and zoom in on that. I would say, though, if you're a provider, you know someone in your area that's not on this map, please let us know. Contact us through the website so we can make sure that you or that other provider are included. Again, all of our tools are better with your participation. We're here as a platform and a conduit, and the more that you engage in this, the faster we can all work together to make glass recycling work. And finally, the last thing I wanted to point you to is the best practices. Here you'll find various case studies for different type of collection models, and here we'll highlight just one of them, MRF resources. We are putting together data-rich glass recycling information, tools, and guidance on how a MRF can best clean their glass and the best type of equipment to purchase and various processing tricks that help to reduce the wear and tear and the economic weight of cleaning glass through that system. And lastly, we'll be getting into some direct engagement as well. So we hope these tools are beneficial to you as you work in your communities. And also, we'd love to have the conversation one-on-one. So please reach out to us about any concerns or challenges you're having in your local area, and we can tie you into this network of glass champions and people throughout the value chain that are really here to help you recycle more glass and serve the demands and desires of your communities and the brands that that benefit from reducing the environmental impact of our containers. So thank you again for having us. For more information, please visit us at our website. You can also follow us on Facebook or Twitter, and send in your information so we can connect and support you.
Thank you, Katie. We do have some questions that have come in for you before we transition to our next panelist. We have one that says, as a government entity, I'm interested in how your coalition plans to handle the essentially monopolistic hold that certain glass manufacturing facilities have on the recycling of glass in the Southeast, since it has changed the way glass recycling is viewed and the cost for this region.
Sure, I think the coalition, I would say, is not directly addressing issues like that in the sense of we're really here just inviting anyone who has a stake in the game to the table to have collaborative conversations around the areas that we share common goals. However, just having an open platform has started to open up that conversation, and having people who are engaged in other parts of the country being exposed to what's happening in the Southeast or various parts of the U.S. Has already started to broaden the understanding of the needs in each area, and I think probably spurred some market interest in that, so that other suppliers can just be aware of what's available through that. But I would also say that in this, because we are all sharing more information and being more transparent with one another, several of us have gotten together to the brands and the processors and the glass manufacturers, et cetera, that we're able to have more information about what one another needs to improve the entire value chain, and therefore each of the existing businesses are going to be able to better serve the ultimate needs, because we're able to see the whole system in one place rather than our tiny little slices of it.
Okay, great. I think the second part of that question is sort of relayed the same way. Do you or others in the coalition have a different source for recycled glass that government agencies and MRFs could take advantage of? And I'm guessing this may be something that's going to be more visible through the marketing map that you've got in there, or any other comments or feedback on that type of a question?
Jen, can you clarify what they're asking about the sources of recycled glass? Like
it does say if
instead
you, if you have different sources for recycled glass, and that government agencies and MRFs are currently, it's kind of, I'm not sure it's complete, but the MRFs and government agencies have to spend a lot of money to make glass recycling happen through these places. So it's
I'm not
almost
sure if I'm not exactly sure what the question is asking, but I can say that that a lot of the glass, like we as a brand are really not able to source cullet from other areas. We are really beholden to what's available through the current systems, which is why we're involved in the Glass Recycling Coalition, because there are areas of the country where single stream and processing works very well, and we want to help improve those so that it could be more cost effective and deliver higher quality glass that's actually able to be used in the furnace. There are areas of the country that are doing amazing with drop-off models or dual stream, and our goal is to say you have a very specific setup there, given your distance to an end market or a processor or MRF, and with that, that region should be able to, with this additional information we're providing, make a smart decision about what type of collection and processing method is going to be most appropriate and cost effective for your region, because we're dependent on you guys to be able to make this work, and so we don't do, at this point, I know that some of our glass manufacturers ship in bottles from other states that have bottle bills. At this time, the coalition is not focusing on any legislative solutions because we tend to divide the room when that happens. So we're focusing more on what we can do together and the interests that we have in common. And at this point, our goal is to make existing systems work better, or make improvements to those systems based on best practices and better awareness of the challenges from a system-wide perspective. So no, we don't have other sources that we're able to pull from. It's extremely expensive to ship glass and also carbon intensive. And so, so we really rely on local systems to be in a good condition to deliver. And if you're having issues with that, if it's not working in your region, I encourage you to contact us through the website, draw attention to that area, and start the conversation with a group from the Glass Recycling Coalition that will represent various members. And you're certainly welcome to say you would rather speak to some members other than other. If you want to talk more to brands, or you're looking for different solutions, that new voices in the process, we're happy to help provide that voice. And so please, if you do have a specific question that we can address, be in touch with us directly.
Okay, I have just a few more for you, if that's okay.
Sure.
I keep pouring in, but I'm going to combine a few of these. There's been several questions based on if the coalition is addressing the non-bottle glass areas, such as CRT glass or plate glass, and are those currently identified on your map or not?
Yes, they are areas of interest of ours, yes. So the container recycling opportunities are just more prevalent right now, but we do have some best practices that we will be sharing soon. For example, Momentum they have a glass processing facility in both Salt Lake City and Denver. They have plate recycling in Salt Lake City, and they have container recycling in Denver, because those are closer to their end markets. And so so we will be sharing more information on that and building that out better than it is right now. And if you have any information that you want to contribute, again, we are a platform, and it's going to be a much more robust resource if we do get that information from you. If we're missing something, please, yes, we would want to feature those other types of materials.
And do you see any new mills opening in the Northeast for containers or fiberglass, or I guess really anywhere else in the region for that matter?
So personally, I'm not familiar with that part, but I'm sure that someone else, I'm not sure if Marissa could pipe in, or anyone else on the call is able to answer this Northeast specific question. But there is, I know in Denver we did, in February, Momentum launched their glass processing facility, which is taking MRF glass and delivering it to the two bottle manufacturers, Rocky Mountain Bottle Company and Owens, Illinois, that are within 30 miles of the glass processing facility. So glass that used to be going to the landfill as stratifying layers is now actually making it back into containers, and both of those bottle manufacturers have a high demand for it because it is reaching the level of quality. Mm-hmm.
And this is Marissa. I would echo what Jen said, to keep an eye on that map, because we are constantly trying to update that with available end markets and as they come up. So that's a good resource to check, and we encourage you to check it often as we keep that updated. And I know we're running a little short on time too. I want to make sure we have enough time for Ellen's presentation as well. So if you do have questions and we don't have time to get to them, please just write them in the question panel, and we'll send them to our panelists to follow up with an email.
Yes, great.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Marissa.
Well, thank you all, and thank you for your interest in helping glass recycling work.
Our next presenter is Ellen Martin. She is the Director of Impact and Growth for the Closedloop Partners. As Director, Ellen tracks progress and impact of the Closedloop portfolio and generates actionable insights for investors, municipalities, and industry. In 2017, she will lead an industry-wide study on the capital landscape for circular infrastructure in the U.S. Prior to joining Closedloop Partners, she was a strategy consultant and partnerships director with FSG, the social impact consulting firm co-funded by Harvard economist Michael Porter. Her clients included major corporations, foundations, governments, and nonprofits. During this time, she led the research team behind Fortune's inaugural Change the World list, featuring 1 billion and up companies addressing global challenges through profitable business models. Thank you, Ellen, for joining us today, and you have the floor now.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Can you all hear me?
Yes, you sound great.
Great, terrific. And thanks so much to CERDIC and the Glass Recycling Coalition for inviting me to join this conversation today. For those of you who are not familiar with Closedloop, maybe I'll just start with a very brief introduction and the work we do. So Closedloop Partners was started initially as Closedloop Fund. We were started with support from the world's leading brands and retailers as an investment platform to strengthen recycling infrastructure in North America. We invest across the system, meaning that we provide loans to municipalities and private companies that are involved in collection, sortation, processing, and market development for all recyclable materials, and focusing primarily on post-consumer packaging. We've been at it for about 2.5 years. We launched alongside of this fund a venture fund, and also which invests venture capital into early stage companies in the circular economy, and then Closedloop Foundation, which is what we see as the R&D arm of our work, where we're trying to learn more about specific bottlenecks and provide research and data that can help the whole system better understand what needs to happen, and hopefully catalyze additional investment into this work through our own dollars, but also through lots of other investment from private and public sources as well. So about a year ago, we received, the foundation was supported by a grant from Heineken USA to conduct some research around glass cleanup systems and MRFs, for all of the reasons that Katie described earlier in terms of the state of glass recycling and the needs and the infrastructure. We wanted to take a look at this issue from the lens of of the MRF in particular. So I'm going to skip over this because I think it's been covered already, but in terms of generation, we see a real missed opportunity in terms of post-consumer recycled glass and what we could be doing with the system. We also take the broader view, much as Will shared earlier in his presentation, of how do we optimize the right infrastructure for all of the materials that we're going to see through the recycling stream. So, I love the tools that have been created to look at the financial needs and models for municipalities and for MRFs. And the hub and spoke model is something that we've seen as well, really have promise for providing sustainable solutions for recycling. One thing that I did want to focus on is, in the Closedloop Funds portfolio, we've provided support for a number of different actors in the system that have to deal with glass. So we have provided loans to expand access to curbside recycling at the city of Memphis, for Scott County, Iowa, where the Quad Cities are, and Portage County, Ohio, just as a few examples. And glass is, a significant part of that stream, where the cost of glass directly impacts municipalities and the MRFs that are servicing them. So we've also invested in MRF upgrades and expansions for organizations such as Eureka Recycling, which is a nonprofit MRF supporting the Twin Cities in Minnesota, and Lakeshore Recycling Systems supporting the Chicagoland area. So these are two examples there. What we estimated on a national scale is, if you look at glass that's being used, it's being pulled out of the system, but then returned to landfill, most often in the form of alternative daily cover. It's a cost to the system, and it shouldn't be, or it doesn't have to be. So we wanted to take a look at that through this study and think about whether there are productive ways and cost-effective ways to increase the reuse of glass at the MRF. And this is an issue that what we wanted to show was really not just about how do we make MRFs profitable, but really has a benefit for all of the system players around this issue. So for municipalities that have revenue share agreements with their MRFs, glass becomes a negative that comes out of that ability to recover costs. We're seeing more and more municipalities take glass out of the system, which we see as a real problem. But it also benefits the processors. Also in our portfolio is Momentum Glass, which Katie mentioned earlier, out in Denver. And we're really excited about that opportunity to strengthen the system in that very local and region that's in need of a better infrastructure. And then for end markets as well, this is something that manufacturers of containers and also brand owners really care about. There are also other end markets where recycled glass can have a lot of value and benefit. We've recently made a loan to a private company that's using recycled glass in aggregate material, which is used in construction. So from this perspective, as an investor, we see the impact of glass across our portfolio, and this was another reason why we felt this was an important piece of work to take a look at. So I wanted to offer just a quick example with a MRF in the Northeast. Oh, that skipped ahead. Sorry. Thanks. Pretty large MRF, so seeing 40,000 tons per year of glass, where they were processing the glass or sorting it out, but then sending it to a glass processor at a significant cost to the MRF. Their cleanup system hadn't been upgraded since 2008. What they did was they invested in state-of-the-art current technology system, and Katie ran through some of that in her MRF best practices example on the GRC site, where an investment of about $600,000 in new equipment installed at the beginning of 2016 had a great improvement for the quality of the glass cullet coming out of that MRF, and translated into a better economic picture for them. So going to the same processor, that glass was generating more value, but then also they were able to send their fines to an alternative aggregate use, so an alternative end market. And then the non-glass residue was also going back into the MRF system and the rest of the line for further recovery and value. With the setup, this MRF saw a payback period of less than 2 years. And so if we look at that from more of a systems perspective, we wanted to say, how do we take that idea and apply it to a broader range of MRFs? So if we start with, what's happening in a lot of cases today where the glass may not have value, and the options are really to send it to a processor at a cost or dispose of it for a discounted fee at the landfill where it's being used for alternative daily cover. It could cost as much as $35 a ton, including transportation. If that MRF and that what we looked at to get kind of a broad cross-section was to look at a MRF that might see 15,000 tons per year of glass, so maybe 60 or 70,000 tons per year of material overall. Installing a system that can really range, the equipment can range depending on the needs, and I should say installing or upgrading for $350,000 to $1 million in cost, that yielded a significant savings. That you could have a better yield in higher value glass, you'd have marketable NGR commodities, you'd have fewer fines and less residue. And that savings translated into roughly $25 or more per ton. And that, as I said before, it benefits the processor and the manufacturer in terms of higher quality feedstock and environmental savings as well. For them, if they get material that's contaminated, that's more that they have to deal with, and you've sort of just pushed the cart down the road in terms of contamination, which we feel like is an inefficiency in the system that we'd like to see change. With more end markets, there are additional opportunities to create value, and I think that is one thing that's an important aspect of the tools that GRC is providing, because you have the map showing where there are lots of opportunities in different markets potentially for that material to go. And that means that more glass is recycled. As we tried to translate this into something that MRF could use to make some decisions around making a capital investment, we saw 5 essential key drivers: that you have to have sufficient volume. We think that it depends on the market, and every case is different, but in general, what we said was something greater than 10,000 tons a year of glass should generate enough payback. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Could you go back? Is that possible? That operations-wise, there's something about the design of where that line is, that glass system is being placed, so that the material comes out as early as possible, and you're engaging in best management and practices. That you have to have access to robust markets, and for us, that was primarily containers, but also we looked at other opportunities as well. And because of the weight, transportation costs were a significant driver, obviously, for a lot of folks. And in general, we tried to stick with those that were in 100 miles of a processor and manufacturer, seeing that is a viable option. But in the Momentum case, they're in a unique situation in the Rockies, or somewhat, in that region, where the source of the feedstock that's coming into that processor in Denver is generally coming pretty close. But for example, in Salt Lake City, sometimes they get material that's coming from 200, 300 miles away. And then financing terms as well, so that the cost of capital doesn't become prohibitive. So we did a sample economic analysis. Again, this is just reflecting that $35 a ton cost. And then the benefits of that, so that you're seeing, and in the footnotes you can read in greater detail the assumptions that we made. But you're seeing the benefit before financing that the cost has dropped down to less than $8 a ton and a net savings of 27 plus dollars a ton. Now, if you're smart, if you've been paying attention, we're still not saying that, or still not seeing, I should say, that in the MRFs we talked to, that glass can turn from a negative to a positive with the addition of a glass cleanup, better glass cleanup system. And there are other issues in the system that need to evolve and change as well to support that. So we need to make sure that municipalities and MRFs are continuing to accept glass in the system, that the contracting is fair. There was a question before about you know, the monopolies in different markets and how that affects the ability of operators to sustain this type of work. It's definitely a sense that we have as well. We have to have end markets that will pay for quality in order for these types of investments to make sense, and we think that that is there. And we'd like to see that continued opportunity for end markets, so that all the right material goes to the right places, that you can get as much as you can into containers and it's infinitely recyclable, but you're also looking at other emerging end markets where some of that material that isn't suitable for containers can go to other places. So we, as we showed in the economic analysis, that's just one example. We wanted to be flexible for on a case-by-case basis, so we developed a calculator. And this is just a screenshot from that where you can enter in your own different variables and come up with your own calculation of, of when when it makes sense to make this type of investment. And we saw, if you took an overlay of that map and actually looked at MRFs that met the qualifications around that I mentioned before, they're within 100 miles of a processor or manufacturer, they're handling sufficient volumes, the cost of disposal is significant or tangible. There are probably about 100 MRFs across the country where this type of investment could make sense. And so with that, I'm going to pause and let folks come in with questions.
Thank you, Ellen. We've had a couple come in here. Some of these I think will definitely be questions that are going to be addressed from now in the future as well. You know, talking about solutions for much smaller MRFs. It sounded like the examples you had given, you know, the studies had determined that you had to be a certain size for this to make economic sense. What about the smaller local MRFs that have maybe a breaker and an air knife, but still getting poor quality material? What's the best course of action that you could recommend for them?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think the solutions there are not something that we looked at in great detail, but I will say that, for example, Scott County, which is in our portfolio, manages 15,000 tons per year. They just did a MRF upgrade. And they have some basic stuff in there, but not a system like the one we're talking about in our study. They were able to, they're a bottle bill state, so it's a little bit of a situation there too, where they're not seeing, the quality is just different, but through conversations and with their broker and with their the ultimate customer, they were able to show that with this new MRF upgrade, they have better quality glass to sell, and that was worth something in the market. And so if that kind of like auditing or paying for quality can happen, it's a real benefit. And engaging actively, I think, in that conversation is an important aspect. I don't know if others have thoughts on that as well, since that wasn't a direct result of our study.
Okay, thank you. I know we are coming at the top of the hour, so we want to be respectful of everyone's time. As Marissa had mentioned earlier, if there were some questions here that were either overlooked or not possible to be answered because we had to move on to the next presenter, they will be submitted to the panelists following today's presentation, and we will try to have those answers posted on the website as well, as a recording of this webinar will be on the glass recycling website. So you should be getting follow-up emails with those links once this is available.
Just on behalf of the Glass Recycling Coalition, I just wanted to thank everyone for your time, and also to thank CERDIC and Jen for Will, Jen, Ellen, and Katie for partaking in this, but specifically CERDIC for partnering with the Glass Recycling Coalition in this webinar, and for taking a leadership role in that. That's been very helpful. And the Glass Recycling Coalition not only wants to collaborate with our members, but as Katie mentioned, we want to collaborate with our communities and with other recycling organizations to really make an impact as far as glass recycling is concerned. So please, anyone on the webinar, all the attendees will receive a survey for how they thought this webinar went, and we encourage your feedback. And there will be as Jen mentioned, a recording of the webinar with the slides up on glassrecycles.org/webinars early next week. So thank you all so much for your time. Thank you to CERDIC and to our presenters, and we hope that you all have an excellent weekend.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.